All right, guys, I was going through the challenge box, opened one up that I've had for quite a while, expecting to find a challenge lock, and instead I found this guy, along with a note of explanation. And he says, I purchased this first watch padlock on eBay because it has a removable core and security pins. I removed the core and was using my tri-pick stand to pick the lock, and I was eventually successful, and then an epic fail. I dumped out all the pins. I'm sending you the lock with all the parts, hoping you can do a video on putting the lock back together, since you rarely do that in videos. I hate for the lock to just sit on the shelf, and I've also sent a sweet bribe. And indeed, he has. Gummy bears. These, I survived on these things as a kid. I mean, they have everything you need. Every food group is in here. They're low in calorie. They're made from vegetable product. They are just absolutely good for you. Nothing bad in gummy bears at all. So don't hesitate to give them to your kids. Likewise, these are the American Energy pills. So if you have a sister like I do who insists on dropping her 4-year-old off to, for you to babysit unexpectedly, like the day you want to do something, right before you send that kid home, give them a pack of these energy pills, and your sister won't be dropping them off anymore. It's like that. Anyway, great bribe. I do appreciate it. This is, by the way, from Bob. Easy to remember. All right, so we have a lock with all the pieces, and Bob's right. I rarely put them back together on camera, so this might be an interesting experiment. So I'm just going to dump everything out here, and let's see, pull him out. Okay, so he's intact, and we have a core, and he looks like he's intact. We'll set him off to the side. We got some keys here, but of course they're not going to do us any good until we start rekeying it. Let's dump all this stuff out. I think I got it all. All right, let me sort through this stuff. I'm probably going to put the camera on fast forward while I make sure all the pins that we need are here. Or maybe not. I might just leave it on. All right, so there we got a security pin. So I don't know what sequence they are in yet. These look like all spools, so it doesn't really matter which chamber they go in. So we can start this right now. If I were pinning this up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I thought this was 6. Haha, there's one hiding in there. Probably a spool. Whoa, no, that was a key pin. All right. Well, here we go. We got 2 steel pins. Okay, so here's the first thing we can learn. These steel pins are usually in chamber number 1. So let's put the steel one in chamber number 1 and take our spool and put them in chamber number 6. Likewise, we got a steel key pin here. So I'm gambling. I'm going to say he's in chamber 1. The rest of these, there's no way to determine exactly where they go just yet. We can't really guess at it. And I'm noticing a damaged pin here. A couple of these guys are stuck together. And I've got a mangled pin. I don't really want to use this mangled spring over, so I'm going to kind of pitch him like that. There, go away. Get in my extra parts here, and there we go. There's a spring. I'll try to grab one that looks kind of the same. That's about right, I think. Grab him, put him right there. All right. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we have an intact lock here. Let's talk about figuring out where the key pins. The hardest part is getting your key pins right. And if you do this part wrong, you're going to jack this whole thing up. The easiest way to figure it out is to segregate your keys so one's not flopping around, just to make it a little less clumsy. Slide your key in there. And now we're going to start populating the cylinder with pins. And we can do it fairly randomly. My first guess would be that the first chamber would be the steel one. And it is. The reason they put that steel one there is so when someone attacks the lock from the front with a drill, theoretically that steel pin and steel driver will divert the drill bit and prevent them from drilling out the entire shear line. Probably won't stop them, but it'll at least slow them down. Now the rest of these are a guess. So here's what I do. I generally will look at the key. Now you'll notice we got a very low cut there in that last position and a very low cut in somewhere in the center. It looks like chamber 1, 2, 3. So what I'm going to do is find my 2 longest pins, and that would be these 2 guys are the longest ones. So I'm going to take him and stick him in, let's see, chamber 3. We'll try there first, and I guessed right on the first try. Again, he fits perfectly. So that means the other long one must go on the very tip. And he does. It's perfect. Look at that. Nice and flush. Now I'm deliberately going to put one in. Well, I may guess wrong here, but I'm just going to drop him. Let me look in there. That's a chamber that's a little bit deep for that pin. Notice how he sits down like that. And please don't put your lock together back like that, because then that the spring will then push the driver down into that little gap there, and you won't be able to turn the core. You'll find yourself having to repick the lock. So when that happens, just dump him back out. Now what I like to do is just look down in there and try to find the shallowest one, and it looks like it might be that guy. So number 5. So I'm going to take that really shallow pin, drop him in 5, and perfectly flush. Okay, these last 2, it looks like number 2 is the deeper of the 2. So I'll take the slightly longer one, drop him in there. And the last pin, this is the moment of truth. If he doesn't fit correctly, then you've definitely done something wrong. All right, right now it looks like they are all perfectly flush. What I like to do now is pull out my key and then gently reinsert him, just in case one of those pins, just to jiggle him around a little bit. Just to make sure one of those key pins wasn't caught up on a piece of lubrication or a piece of gunk in there and giving you the false indication. These are perfectly flush. If they were misaligned, I'm going to pull that key out just to make it happen. You can see that it looks quite different. Light reflects off of the edge. And if you try to pin it like this, your key pin will be protruding up inside of the body of the Bible, and you won't be able to turn the core. So please make sure all of these are perfectly flush. All right. The hard part is done. Take your core and set him aside. Try not to tip him over. All right, let's take a look at this guy. The Bible's a little bit different on both ends. You notice on one side is perfectly flush, and the other side has a little ledge hanging out there. That little ledge is designed to protect the top of the core. So let me just slide him in carefully and show you what I'm talking about. Notice how now he's perfectly flush on the front. If we put him on the other end, that core, the tip of that core would be sticking out a little bit, and somebody could grab that with a pair of pliers or a pair of vice grips or something, and they could twist your core. So the way that they prevent that is they just put that little ledge on the front. And this is important. You don't want to reassemble it backwards. Now it'll go together either way. No matter which side you put that core in, those holes are going to line up, but just make sure your ledge is on the front. So that would be chamber number 1. We're going to populate this from the rear. Now, let me find a follower here. What you want to do is look at the back of your core and notice the actuator. This is a half moon actuator. We're going to take the half moon and so that it'll line up just like that. So that when we repopulate this, there's not going to be a gap. If I had used the other end of this, notice how we're going to have gaps in there. It just doesn't seem to fit right. And that'll allow the pins, the spring-loaded pins, once we repopulate the Bible, to pop back down. So just make sure if you got a half moon on the back of the actuator, you're working with a half moon portion of your follower. So he's going to go about like that. All right. Now I'm going to show you the next hardest part, and that is populating the last chamber. Now I work kind of backwards when I put this together. I take my spring and I drop him in chamber number 6, like so. Notice the notch is still on the front. Double check yourself. Then I'm going to take pin number 6, happens to be a spool. Now, tip on your drivers. These are all spools, so it doesn't really matter. These can go in any order. These are all identical spools. If you had, say, 3 spools and 2 serrated, you want to alternate them. You don't want your 2 serrated side by side, and you don't want all your spools side by side if you can help it. So try to alternate, and that's going to change the feel of the lock. When you grab him by your tweezers, make sure the end of him is sticking out like that, and grab him rather firmly. And I'm going to insert him all the way through this end, and I'm going to take him and put him, I'm trying to do this with the camera lens, put him down into that hole. And I'm going to use my tweezers just to hold him on top of my pinning tray. take my follower. Again, make sure that the half moon is the part you're using. Let me get this up here where it's kind of focused. And then I'm going to slide him in until he pushes up against that pin and holds him in place. At that point, I release my tweezers. And then when you hold him up like this, let me grab a light, you can see that that follower has him wedged in place. Okay, that's basically a false set, what you're looking at there. But what we have to do is push him all the way into the chamber. So take your tweezers, put it on top of him, release the pressure on your follower, and slide him in until he is completely submerged below the shear line. You can see the tip of him sticking out there. At that point, double check and make sure you still have 5 empty holes in front of him. Make sure you didn't push it too far. So now we're going to populate number 5. That last one is the hardest to get lined up. I'll be honest with you. It's a little difficult, but if you just hold it with your fingers, you can generally get it. All right, again, grab him like that so that he's sticking out. Slip him into chamber 5, and as you move forward, this does get easier. Oop, I made a mistake. Stop flapping your lips and focus on what you're doing, Bill. Take him back out. Let's put a spring in first. What do you say? Okay, again, I want to move my follower back till I can see chamber 5. Drop him down in there. Now, Bill, put that spool in, push him down in the hole, and advance your follower. Now we've got 2 of them in. They get easier. Chamber 4. And repeat. It's a little harder with spools because they do give you that false set. Get kind of a weird angle to work. Okay, there we go, number 3. After you get past about pin number 4, the follower will self-align itself, so you don't have to worry so much about it falling out the back. Chamber 2. And the last one, chamber 1. All right, our Bible is completely populated. Double check, make sure you don't have any pins or springs left, like I almost did a minute ago. So we are completely loaded. Notice that our follower, our half moon follower, is now sticking out in the correct angle. Now we're going to take this guy. Now when we slide him in there, what you want to do, you want to make sure that you do not orient your core with the pins pointing up, because if you do that and you slide him in, that spring-loaded pin will then pop into that first chamber and you'll be completely seized up. So you need to offset them a little bit. You want those pins to push down against the flat side of the core somewhere. It could be there, it could be there, it could be over there. But again, you do not want it to be the bottom. So make sure that they kind of line up. So let me set this down. I'm going to line them like this. I really don't want him to have to jump a very big gap. So I'm going to slide him like this. And now I'm just going to slide him in there. Now see, I just pushed that follower right out. None of the pins popped out. They're all in place. And now, theoretically, when I turn this like this, it is now locked. And hopefully when I put the key in there, we get an open. Now do not pull this out because there's no clip on the back. I'm just double checking to make sure he turns. Very carefully remove that key without pulling the core, because if you do that, it'll pull the core out in the spring. That's probably how this happened to Bob in the first place. All right, at this point, we want to grab your clip, and this is our insurance. And some of these have little notches, and like this one, some of them don't. So I'm just going to slide him on like so. And you want to make sure he doesn't protrude from the outer. When it looks like this, it's kind of lined up. You don't want anything sticking out, otherwise it'll get caught up when we stick it in the lock. And this is working perfectly. Again, I want to take my key. I'm going to slide him in there and just make sure the lock still turns and he's not falling out. Not a lot of jiggle in there. So we're good. We've got him completely reassembled. Let's set him aside for a minute. Now let's take a look at our lock body. This thing is locked. So if we reassemble him like this and it doesn't work, something goes wrong, it's going to be locked together. So we really want to open this guy up. And the way I do it, let me grab a screwdriver you can take a screwdriver, reach down there, and do what the core does. Just turn your actuator, and the lock will then open up, just like that. We want him open. Okay, at that point, get this guy, and let's take him apart, because we're going to be using him. Let's take our lock, slide him in there, and this is, some locks get pushed to that side, and other locks get pushed to that side. Now you'll notice when he's pushed to that side, the hole down there is obscured just a little bit. He's kind of blocked. So that tells me he's probably going to want to go to that side. Some locks will let you put that in either way. And the way you do it, the way you decide, is you take your armored plate and we slide him on there, and you see which way the key is aligned. Now, see, we've got him correct. If I had him in backwards, like so, and if I still had an unobscured hole, I could still install this. But you'll notice that the keyway is now blocked by that armored plate. So that tells me he needs to go to the other side. Let's put him over there, put him like that. We're going to take our nut, and we're just going to slide him in there. A lot of these have little wings on them, like this one. The little wings go into some notches, and you can see those right there. So we're going to slide him in there till the notches line up. Place your finger on it. And at that point, do not put the screw in just yet. What we want to do is lock him. Make sure it locks, everything works properly. We're going to take our key. We're going to slide him in there the right way and just make sure that everything works, and it does. At that point, go ahead, drop the screw down the side of there, and he's a Phillips. Get a Phillips. And tighten him down. Make him nice and snug, but don't over torque him, because water will eventually get down in there and it'll get kind of corroded. So just snug it up real good. There's no reason it would ever have to come loose. Lock him up, and there you go. Completely reassembled first watch. There you go, Bob. Nothing to it. It's just reverse of what we do when we take them apart. Anyway, guys, appreciate your time. Stay safe, stay legal. As always, I appreciate your subscriptions. Click on that bell, the notification bell, so you know whenever I post a brand new video. As always, I'd appreciate it if you click on the like button. And if you'd like to support the LockLab, that is how you do it. Thanks, guys. If you like what LockLab's doing, you can really help me out by subscribing, hitting the like button, and of course sharing it on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks, guys.